Welcome, everyone. I'm Christine Biglin from St. Mary's County Library. And tonight we have Barb Whipkey from the Wild Birds Unlimited store in Lexington Park and La Plata. And we are going to be talking about who's nesting in my backyard. Welcome, Barb, and thank you again, as always, for sharing all your great bird knowledge with us.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining us. So hopefully I have already met a lot of you in the store, and if not, hopefully I'll get to in the near future. So I'm going to quickly hop into it because we do have a lot to cover tonight. So I'm gonna pop in here to screen share. All right, so hopefully you can see my screen there. And we're going to talk about who's nesting in my yard. So this year it's been a little bit cooler. Of course, we've had those couple 80-degree days, and then today we had snow. So our birds have been a little slow to get started nesting, but that's actually a great thing because if they already had eggs in there, it would be a little bit of a challenge for them to keep those eggs incubated. So we're not going to be disappointed that they've been a little slow to nest. But probably a lot of you have seen your bluebirds starting to nest. So that's obviously one that's going to be in there we're going to talk about. But we'll get into several of them. Don't be disappointed if you don't already have those nesters because we are doing this a little bit earlier than we often do. So this is going to give you a chance to know who you're going to be looking for as far as nesters, so that if you want to set up nest boxes and get ready for them, you still have plenty of time to catch those nesters. When I'm asked, when is the best time to set up a nest box? I always say yesterday, because you want that nest box to become a part of the environment. They often don't want to just move right into a nest box. On the other hand, often they will. Somebody will put up a nest box and boom, we went out one time, helped a lady set up a nest box, and Chip went and did this one while he was standing there talking to her. A bluebird literally flew in, landed on top, and started checking out the house. That's a sign there is a shortage of housing in your neighborhood. But often it will take them a few weeks to come to trust that house and realize it's there. So the sooner you set up the nest box, the better it is. Tonight we're going to talk about who those birds are that may be nesting in your yard, how we can recognize them, and how we can help them. So basic necessity that those birds need, obviously food, water, and then cover. When we talk about cover, little things you can do is just when you have those branches that come down. A lot of you probably have been looking at your yard thinking, I have so many branches that have come down during that ice storm and that. As you go and clean up your yards and pull those branches out, if you can build a little tower of those branches along the edge of your yard, the birds will really appreciate those spots for shelter, cover, not so much for nesting, although some of them may get in there and build nests, but also when those baby birds fledge, they can use those as shelter to get those baby birds into them. So think about building some safe places with some of those tree branches and things. And then places to raise those young. So that's going to be your nest boxes. That's going to be shrubs, trees, and we'll go into all that as we go through. And then foods. High protein and high calcium foods are extremely important. Protein becomes very important for development of good eggs, and also feathers are made up of 90% protein. So providing food that's high in protein is going to help those baby birds develop strong feathers. And then calcium becomes important for stronger eggshells. So if mom's getting in and out of that nest box, we don't want those eggs to be too brittle and have her cracking an egg as she's crawling in and out of there. So look for things that's high in calcium high in protein. If you're using our nesting blend, that's a great source. It comes in the loose that you see there, but also comes in a cylinder form. If you haven't seen the cylinder form, grab one. They just drop onto a feeder like this, an extremely convenient, mess-free way to feed. So those are two great ways. Any of our bark butter or bark butter foods are high in protein, high in calcium. So those are good options. The bottom one you see there, Bug and Bits, it has a mixture of the dried mealworms and the bark butter bits. We'll often have customers come in and say, my birds are snobs. They won't touch the dry mealworms. Often that's because of the shape. Birds choose their food based on the shape. So a good way to trick them into learning to eat that shape is to mix them with the bark butter bits, which is the round food that you see in there. You also, if you're going to feed that in an area where the squirrels can get to it, those bark butter bits come in a hot pepper formula. When I'm feeding that in a window, I will take a bag of the hot pepper bark butter bits, mix it with a bag of the mealworms, and that tends to work to keep the squirrels out of there. By feeding that right in a window, you can bring the birds right up to the window. You get mom, dad coming to the window when the babies fledge. They will then start bringing those baby birds to the window. So then you've completed the full cycle. You have those babies coming to the window also. So look for those foods high in calcium. A lot of people feed suet in the winter, and then they think they're only feeding that for warmth in the winter, that fat. But you actually want to continue with suet. This is just the little squares that you're used to. You want to continue feeding suet as we go into the spring and summer. Baby birds get all of their moisture from their food. Obviously, dry seed is not going to have a moisture content to it. But if you continue with the suet, the parents can grab bites of suet and take back to the nest box for them. As we go into the warmer months, when temperature starts getting above 80, 85 on a regular basis, we will switch our suet out to a no melt variety in here. If you're purchasing your suet elsewhere, you want to look and make sure you're getting a no melt variety, so you don't have that suet dripping down the side of your feeders, making a horrible mess. But suet is definitely something you want to continue feeding. Also, if you're feeding bark butter, that's another great option for that high protein, high calcium. If you're not familiar, bark butter can just be spread right onto a tree or a feeder using a fork. And that's another one that comes with hot pepper to keep those annoying squirrels out of there. And then water. Water is extremely important. We all think of water for drinking, but they also need it to keep those feathers healthy. And then we're going to talk about the types of nesters. So top left is a cup nest. That's the ones you see in the trees, bushes. So this is why it's good to have some trees, bushes around your yard. That's going to bring in some of the cup nesters. And as we go through the talk, you'll see what some of those birds are that would use those. Platform nesters down below there, right here. That would be some robins, things like that are going to be platform nesters. Also, doves would be a platform nesters. Barn swallows would be another type of platform nester. Down here in the center is our secondary cavity nesters. What that means is those birds are dependent on an abandoned cavity. So they do not have the capability to excavate their own cavity. and that's our good old bluebird. So that's why they are so appreciative of us putting out bluebird houses that they can use for nesting boxes. A few years ago, several years ago, bluebird numbers were in a big decline, but because humans got involved, started helping by putting up bluebird houses, we were able to bring the bluebird population back. And then primary cavity nesters here on the right. As you see there, we have the northern flicker in that picture. That one is obviously very busy in that picture, excavating a nest. So they are digging out the hole, making their own nest in that dying tree there. If they nest in there this year, then they decide to move on. Next year, that bluebird could use that nest, but they just aren't able to use that dead tree to create their own nest themselves. So they're dependent, the bluebirds are dependent on us putting up houses or finding abandoned woodpecker holes. Okay, so those are our most common types of nests that you would see in your yard. Okay, so nesting sites for birds. So how we can help is if you have those dead trees in your yard, if you can leave those snags, if it's not in an area that's going to risk your trees, your cars, your houses, if you can leave that tree, you can watch as it develops. You'll bring in insects, you'll bring in woodpeckers, and it'll become a home for a lot of other wildlife, insects, birds. So that's a great way to help out. Then those secondary cavities, as I already mentioned, those bluebirds, house wrens after that first year, they have the opportunities. Titmice are another secondary cavity nester. Believe it or not, the little tiny chickadee is able to excavate that nest. So if you leave that snag, that itty bitty little chickadee could actually get in there and make a home out of that. Nest boxes are a big one that is a great way to help out. And then you have the opportunity to really get in there and watch what's going on. With those cavity nesting birds, it's just important to have the right size holes on your houses. If you have a house and you're just not sure it's a bluebird house, but you're debating if the hole is the right size, we have these little metal rings. You can easily pop those onto the front of the house and make it the right size hole for the bird that it was intended for. Another quick note on that, if you've got a bluebird house and a chickadee decides to move in there, I recommend popping this chickadee and titmouse protector on it. As much as we love our little bluebirds, they will come in and destroy eggs or baby birds if they want that house to use. So you pop that little protector in, it makes it smaller so the bluebird can no longer get in there. Let the chickadee nest. Once the chickadee baby's fledged, you can then remove it. Bluebirds nest 3 times a year, so then the bluebirds can use it the rest of the year. Chickadees only nest once, and they nest early in the summer. And then you'll just keep that package in the garage or junk drawer, or wherever, so you'll have it for the next year. And then, as I mentioned already, bushes and trees are very important to have those around. If you do have bushes and trees that need to be pruned in that, either get them right now or hold off until late summer so that nesting is over, so that you're not creating problems during nesting season. And then the type of nesting boxes. So that first one on the left is what we call decorative. These are those cutesy little ones that you see at the drugstores or wherever. It has very thin wood and there is no way to clean it out. Those I recommend buying and decorating the top of your kitchen cabinets with or using them in the house for decorations. If you do want to put them out in the yard, plug that hole up so that nobody can get in there to nest, because those are just not a safe habitat for birds. So use those strictly decoration. The center is what we call a functional decorative. Let me grab one here. So this one would be a functional decorative house. So it's cute, it's adorable. This one is actually made out of recycled houses and barns out of Illinois. But the reason it's functional is it has a clean out port on the back. So after the bird's nest, I can get in there and clean it out, plug it back up so the birds can nest in it again. So that would be functional decorative. It looks cute, but you can clean it out and it can be a safe one. And then the right one on the right would be functional. So that would be something like this. This is actually my preferred, is ones that you can easily clean out. They have fledgling ladders in there. There's little corners cut out here. If water were to get in there, it's going to drain out. Cross ventilation. I mentioned those bluebirds nest 3 times a year. So if it gets really hot in there, that last nesting, it's going to allow the heat to escape. The top opens here, so you can get in there, see what's going on with your babies. This one's made out of recycled milk cartons. So this would be a functional box. So it's not as pretty, but it does the job. And by the way, if you were to walk in and tell me you wanted to buy a house, I would ask you what kind of house you were looking for or what kind of birds you wanted to attract. If you weren't looking specifically for any type of bird, I would always direct you toward a bluebird house. In our area, bluebirds, chickadees, titmice, and Carolina wrens will all nest in a bluebird box. So there's a bigger chance that you're going to get a tenant by going with a bluebird box. Okay, so the first bird we're going to talk about is the bird that most people know, a lot of people. This is the bird that gets you excited about birding, and that's the good old northern cardinal. So that's our male down there, and you get a little glimpse at the eggs there, and they are a cup nester. So they're going to build a little nest somewhere in a bush, shrub, often right along a sidewalk near a house, usually not the best of locations. They're going to just nest it in the little fork of a tree, unfortunately in a pretty obvious location, typically about 1 to 15 feet. Most common height will be about 3 to 5 feet. Clutch size is 2 to 5 eggs, and then they'll do that 1 to 2 times throughout the summer. Mom is going to set on those eggs for 11 to 13 days and fledge for 10 to 13 days, or fledge in 10 to 13 days. So if you see a cardinal nest, I encourage you to just pretend you didn't see that cardinal nest, because a female cardinal will sometimes, if she thinks she has been spotted, she will sometimes abandon that nest. So where the other ones, they are committed to that nest, cardinals will on occasion abandon that nest if they think they've been spotted. So this is one I'm just going to say, pretend you didn't see it. The male will feed the fledglings, and then the female's going to start on that next nest. If this is her first nest and she's going to nest again, she will often go ahead and start on that next nest. Same thing if they're in a nest by the front door and you're walking the dog, if you can avoid walking the dog near there, because obviously, most likely the dog is going to find them in that nest where they are. So if you can keep the dog away for a bit till those babies fledge, please do. Most female songbirds do not sing. The male, typically, the one you hear, the beautiful songs, which the birds are starting to sing now. Typically, nesting season is when they do their singing. The female cardinal is one of the exceptions, and she does sing. Unfortunately, I mentioned she doesn't pick the best location for nesting. Unfortunately, she also chooses to sing while she's sitting on that nest. So she makes herself very obvious when she is sitting on that nest in the not so great location. And the next one, the mourning doves. Where do they nest? Anywhere they want to. So you may walk out and find an egg laying on a deck rail or laying on a sidewalk or just any random spot. And that will be your mourning doves. Really small head there because there's not a whole lot going on in that head. So if you find a random egg and nobody comes back to it, it does not mean that you've done anything wrong. They just sometimes forget to build the nest and just drop that egg wherever. A pot outside with nothing in it, they may decide that's good enough for a nest. It's just the mourning dove, what can I say? They lay 2 white eggs. They sit on those eggs for 14 to 15 days, but they will sometimes just abandon that nest for no reason. They fledge in 12 to 14 days, and they will have up to 5 nestings a year throughout the summer. Unfortunately, they need to have those 5 nestings a year because so many of them are unsuccessful because they get sidetracked, forget to finish out nesting, or lay those eggs and don't remember to set on them. So they have to do it more often than a lot of our birds. Nest abandonment is very common with those doves. So don't feel like you've done anything wrong if you see it happen. There's nothing you can do about those eggs. If you see that egg there, just leave it and wait and see what happens. She may come back to it. If not, something else will find that egg and make a meal out of it. The male takes the day shift. He sits on the eggs during the day. The female takes the night shift with them. Just a little fun fact on this with the downy woodpeckers. We won't be talking about them today, but just a fun fact. The female downy woodpecker sits on the eggs during the day, and the male takes the night shift. So downy woodpecker, he gets the dad of the year because that is the most dangerous time to be setting on the egg. So he takes that night shift for her. And then the good old Carolina chickadee. Here in Southern Maryland, we do not have the black-capped chickadee. We have the Carolina chickadee. So both of them will excavate a nest out of a rotten wood or enlarge an abandoned woodpecker cavity, but they'll work together to do that. Typically 2 to 25 feet high. As I mentioned already, they will use a bluebird nest, but if they do use a bluebird nest, you're going to want to put that ring on to protect them from bluebirds if you have bluebirds in your yard. You can also actually use a house, something like this, that is specifically for the woodpecker, or I'm sorry, for the Carolina chickadees. That's actually Carolina chickadee or Carolina wren, either one. So Carolina chickadees will build their nest mostly out of moss. So they make a really pretty little nest with moss. The female does all of the nest building, and the top layer, she will put kind of animal fur or fluff on it. You can put the little balls of of the batting like this out, and they will pull that for the top of it. A lot of times people will look and think she built that nest, but she's not doing anything with it. When she is laying her eggs, songbirds lay one egg a day, and they don't start setting on those eggs until they have laid a full clutch. So she'll come in every day, lay that egg, and then she's going to pull that blanket of fur or fluff back over, go off, spend her day. Come back the next day, pull it back, lay an egg, cover it back over. And she's going to do that until she has a full clutch. So often you're thinking she's not doing anything with that nest, when in actuality, she is filling that nest up. She's just covering it from predators when she's away for the day. And they do it right. They lay 3 to 10 eggs before they set. They set once and then they're done, and they have the rest of the summer to play. So that's why I was saying if you get them in a bluebird nest, you're just going to protect them. Then you can take that spacer off and let the bluebirds use it for the other 2 nestings. And you can see in that box there how it's moss all the way up. And then there's that layer of fluff and fur. And that then she would just cover those eggs with that. She's going to set on those eggs for 12 to 15 days until hatching. 16 to 19 days, those babies will fledge. And I don't know if I already said this, but the female does all the nest building. And then the good old tufted titmouse. They are a fun little bird, but they are feisty. So when they're nesting, if you come out to check their nest, usually that mama will not leave her nest, and she is going to snap at you and yell at you. She is very protective of her nest. They're also a cavity nester, so again, you can give them that bluebird house and they will use that. So their house, you can see there, it starts the nest with moss. So often people will send me pictures and ask me what kind of nest it is, and I will not call it in the beginning when it's moss, because both of them start with a layer of moss. So I have to wait till it gets further up to see whether it stays moss, because the tufted titmouse then begins to layer in crunched up leaves with theirs. They also add animal fur, but they love to add people hair or horse hair, things like that, into their nests as well. If you're sitting outside and you sit still too long, you may lose a piece of hair or two to the tufted titmouse. If you go online and Google, you will find videos where the tufted titmice actually pull people's hair right out of their head to use for nesting boxes. So they use the damp leaves, grass, bark, so their nests get a little messier looking than the chickadees, but you will be able to tell when it's about halfway built if it's chickadee instead. And again, putting out these nesting balls work. We no longer recommend using pet hair or dryer lint or pieces of yarn. We used to always recommend those as great options, and we do not recommend using those anymore because of using medicines, pet meds, and that on our animals. And little pieces of yarn, we found them wrapped around the little nails on the birds. And then dryer lint just doesn't dry out as well. And then also because of the laundry detergents and fabric softeners. And there's just a picture of what the tufted titmouse eggs look like, and those grumpy looking little faces in the nest. They are also going to set on those eggs about 12 to 14 days, fledge at about 15 to 16, 3 to 9 eggs, but 5 to 6 is going to be the most common for them. While they're sitting on those eggs, the male is going to feed the female, whether she's on the nest or off. So if she comes over to your feeder and that, you may see him overfeeding there. And then often you will see helpers from the last year helping to feed those young. So you may see extra birds going in and out of that nest box, and that would be babies from last year that are helping mom and dad feed the new babies. And then the house finch. So if you have a wreath on your door right now and you value that wreath, I recommend getting that down tonight or tomorrow. Otherwise, those house finch will be making nests in it. I saw my house finch today starting to look for a location. We have some flat door hangers that you can put it there so you have something pretty on your door, but they're not able to build nests on these. They love, love, love to build in wreaths, and they are one of the messiest nesters out there. If you've ever had the displeasure of having them nest in a wreath, you know what I'm talking about. They are really messy, but they love to nest on trees, porches, lamp posts, anywhere near your front porch. So get those wreaths down now, or you're going to regret it, and you're going to remember, oh my gosh, she told us about that. Um, I won't say I told you so when it happens, but I would definitely get those wreaths down. Their nests are made of just stems, leaves, twigs, feathers, string, anything they can find, but they do not clean after those babies poop in those nests. So that wreath will end up in the trash. There's no cleaning out that wreath after they're done nesting. The one on the left with the red, that's your male, and the brown one is your female. They will lay 2 to 6 eggs. So this often confuses people. When they see those blue eggs, they're convinced they have a bluebird or a robin nesting there. So take a look at those eggs and see those black spots on them. That's going to help you to differentiate. But that is a house finch nest with the black spots on it. They are going to sit on those eggs for 13 to 14 days, and then those babies will fledge in 12 to 19 days. So that's going to be several days of you not wanting to open that door and risk having a house finch in your front door or in your house. So definitely get those wreaths down. And they will nest 1 to 6 times throughout the summer. The female appears to do most of the nest shopping, but the male comes and checks behind her. And this is unusual because that's not how it is with most of the songbirds. House finches feed their nestlings exclusively plant foods, which is a pretty rare occasion in the bird world. So you're not going to see them eating your mealworms. I have a window feeder that I have some bark butter bits. It's one of them that has the divider in it. So one side I keep straight hot pepper bark butter bits, and then the other side is hot pepper bark butter bits mixed with mealworms. And it's funny because they will go to the side that has the straight hot pepper, like, oh no, this is the vegetarian side I have to eat over here. But they stay away from that side that has the mealworms mixed in with it. And then our good old Carolina wren. So that bird that's waking you up early, early, early in the morning, that is the Carolina wren. They are that early morning singer that you hear. They like to nest 3 to 6 feet off the ground. They will nest 1 to 3 times throughout the summer, laying 5 to 7 eggs. And then she's going to set on those eggs for 12 to 16 days and 10 to 16 days before they fledge. And these are another one that are going to nest anywhere. So the grill, if you want to be able to use your grill this summer, you want to make sure you're getting in there often. If you want to use your camper, your RV, you want to make sure that you're getting in there, checking around things because lickety split before you know it, she will have a nest built and eggs in it. So you can destroy the nest, but once the egg's in there, you're kind of out of luck. So watch any of those things that tend to sit, the boats, the campers, all those things. Don't let that nest get eggs in it or you're kind of stuck. And people get really bummed when they want to take those boats out and come out and find a Carolina wren nest in there. So the male will build the nest and he will often build multiple nests. So if he's planning to nest here, any acceptable spot nearby, he'll put a nest there. So he prevents neighbors from moving in too close to him. He'll build it out of pretty much everything he can find. Then the female will come along and choose which house she actually wants, and she will fill the liner and then put the front porch on it because theirs looks sort of like an igloo. They put a top on it and then a little front porch tunnel on that. But she does the final touches on that after choosing which one of the ones he built she actually wants. But he also keeps neighbors from moving in too close to him. And then our good old Eastern bluebird. And if you didn't sit in on our talk last month, Christine will share the YouTube link where you can go in and watch the whole talk where we go into more detail. Because if you want to put up a house for Eastern bluebirds, there's a whole bunch of information that you'll want to know about bluebirds. But the male finds the house. And then he may find one, two, three houses. Then he brings the female. She makes the final decision. And then once she chooses the house, she'll often leave a little rent deposit. And I know we've been getting lots of messages over the last few days that a lot of our customers are getting rent deposits. So that's exciting to see. A lot of people the last week, their bluebirds have started building. So bluebird season is officially started and they're going to build 3 times throughout the summer. We recommend the hole be 5 feet high and that you put a snake and raccoon baffle on that. That is the biggest predators of our bluebird house because of the size of the hole on that. It's the perfect size for a snake to get in. And you don't want to have watched all this happen and then all of a sudden see a snake or raccoon take your babies or your eggs. So if you want to set up a bluebird house, definitely recommend you go back and watch that one. I already mentioned they're secondary cavity nesters, meaning they're not able to excavate that nest. Their clutch size is 4 to 5 eggs. They have 2 to 3 broods. Most commonly here in Southern Maryland is 3 broods. She's going to set on those eggs 12 to 14 days, and then they will fledge at 18 days. And then, oh, that lazy cowbird. So if you remember, those eggs there are the house finch eggs. All of a sudden, you may look at one of your nests and you see a random egg that looks totally different than all of your other ones. That would be a cowbird eggs. There is nothing that you can do, nor should you do about that egg. So cowbirds used to travel with the bison herds, and birds know that their job is to keep their species going. They don't lay these eggs and set on them because they want to have 6 children. It's just to keep their species going. The only way cowbirds could keep their species going because of traveling with the bison's herd, they were never in one place long enough. So the way they overcame that was by dropping their eggs in other birds' nests, which is actually pretty cool if you really think about it. Nature doing what nature does, improvising. So they drop their eggs in there. You'll see if you go online, like, oh, just shake that egg or put a pinhole in it or throw it out. There's also, if you look, you will see where cowbirds have come back to check on their eggs, found their egg destroyed or damaged, and has destroyed the other eggs in that nest. Not to mention, cowbird is a native species, so it is illegal to destroy any of our native species eggs. So leave it alone. Yes, some of those birds, because they are smaller, may not survive, unfortunately. But it's nature, and as much as we would like to make things work the way we think they should, the right thing to do is leave it alone and let nature do what nature does. Okay, and then another big one, if you find a baby bird, please leave it alone. The only time that you need to step in is if this baby bird has no feathers. If that baby bird is fully feathered, then that baby bird has fledged and the parents are trying to get it to safety. I know that baby bird can't fly. When baby birds leave the nest, they're not able to fly. The baby bird's probably alone because mom and dad are hiding because you're out there or your neighbor kids are out there. If you can get the kids away, you disappear, mom and dad will quickly get that bird to safety. Again, if the bird has no feathers, if you're able to figure out where the baby bird came from, you can pick it up and get it back in that nest. And you can do that with your bare hands. Birds don't have a sense of smell, so it's okay to do that, or you can put a glove on, whatever you're comfortable with. But if you can get it back into the nest, that's the best bet. It has a much better chance of survival being raised by the parents. If it's fully feathered, even though it may look smaller, it's ready to be on its own, and its best chance of survival is with the parents. So you'll find charts like these all over to use. And if you can help when it becomes time for baby birds to start fledging, if you can find these charts and share them on social media and help keep people from bird napping, we would be so appreciative. The number of times that we've gotten calls or literally had people show up at our doorstep with birds that really should have been left alone. It's really sad. It's like these birds would have been just fine, but when they end up, I used to be a licensed wildlife rehabber when we lived in Virginia, um, and they don't have nearly as great a chance of survival in humans' hands as even as a licensed wildlife rehabber as they do if they're left with their bird parents. So anything you can do to help share this when it comes fledgling time, we appreciate that. So just use social media. That's where social media can come in really handy at helping spread that word. All right. So when you offer these things that we talked about, the food, the shelter, the cover, places to raise their young, and water, you can turn your yard into a backyard nature habitat, provide hours of entertainment for you and your family, and improve the lives of birds. This is actually a picture of a mockingbird here. This was down at Point Lookout, which is a great place for a mockingbird to be nesting. If you end up with a mockingbird deciding to want to nest in your yard, if you've ever had that before, you've felt the frustration. because they will try to hoard your bird feeders, and we can help you with that too. Our recommendation is that in that case is to give a mockingbird a little dish of food of its own. One of their favorite food is the bluebird bugberry blend. It has everything the bluebirds love, but they love the same foods. The mockingbirds love the same food as the bluebirds. Put it in a small cup on a hook. Let the bluebirds, I'm sorry, the mockingbirds claim that dish as their own. Then every day or every few hours, you just take that pole and that dish and slowly move it away from the rest of your feeders until you eventually have walked that feeder and that pole around the side of the house, around the front of the house, somewhere out of sight of your main feeding station. And now that mockingbird has its own little dish of food. Don't ever let that dish run dry because you don't want to bring him back to the other feeders and start it over. But that's the easiest way to deal with a mockingbird that's hoarding your feeders. We're coming into the season that mockingbirds are about to start that. So if you end up with that, can't remember how to do it, give us a call and we can walk you through that again. But just be prepared that mockingbirds are just about to start hoarding feeders and feeding stations. We can help you with that too. And then any questions, I'm going to take this off screen share and turn it over to Christine for questions.
Okay. You had mentioned cleaning out the birdhouses, especially for the ones that like nest multiple times. So
Yeah.
how do you recommend doing that?
Yeah, great question. So first of all, as far as cleaning them out, as soon as you have seen those babies have fledged, and you're probably going to know because you've been watching your feeders, and mom and dad have been in and out feeding, and then all of a sudden it just goes quiet. So pop out there, take a look, confirm that everybody's gone. As soon as they've fledged, they are done. They're not bringing those babies back in there. Go ahead and take all the nesting out. If it's not overly dirty, you can just use a paintbrush or a little spatula, scrape everything out and quickly close it back up. If it's dirty, spray it with a bleach and water solution, 1 part bleach, 9 parts water, and then just a little brush it out, spray it again with plain water, leave it open to dry. Soon as it's dry, close it back up again so that somebody else can use that. That's a great question. Thank you.
Um, and there was a question about bluebirds in particular. Do you have nesting blend and then specific bluebird blend? And if
We do.
so, okay, so you have both of those?
We have both of those, yes.
Okay. So I assume the bluebird blend is better for the bluebirds in particular?
Yeah, so the bluebird blend is all of the foods that the bluebirds love, and it's also chopped into bluebird size pieces. Believe it or not, birds choose their food based on the shape of their bill, and then they have a preferred size. And I am not the one that figured that out.
Okay, pretty cool. And are those available online?
They are online, yes.
Okay. All right. I think that was all the questions that I saw in the chat. And I did want to just check on something because at the beginning you had recommended if you don't really know what sort of bird you want, that you can get a bluebird house because they all fit
Yes.
in there. Um, but you did also touch on if you have the bluebird house, you have to put it on a post as
Yes.
opposed to like in a tree.
Yes.
Okay.
So bluebird houses, I always recommend putting on a post with a predator guard baffle. And so that's our long baffle, not our squirrel baffle or the little triangle baffle, because snakes and raccoons can get past those. So it has to be the long stovepipe baffle. It's about 3 feet long. And that's what keeps snakes and raccoons out. So even if you're hoping to only get chickadees or titmice, if that opening is 1.5 inches, which is a bluebird size, then you would want to put it on a stovepipe baffle. But if it's the small, like this one, which is designed for Carolina wrens and chickadees, it has a smaller hole. So that one you can choose to hang because it's
Okay.
it's a smaller hole
So
on
it
it.
just comes down to the size of the hole in the
Exactly. Yes.
opening as to if
Yeah.
you can put it in a tree or if it has to
Yes.
be on the stovepipe with the baffle. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks for the clarification.
Sure.
Um, you were talking about all your different houses at the beginning, and it made me realize you're a realtor too.
Right?
And I'm very surprised mourning doves have lasted with
That's why
their
they have to nest so many times.
yes, yes, I agree.
And I know
Okay.
you all know looking at your feeders, there's no shortage of them either.
Pretty amazing. So if anyone else has questions, I don't think there was anything else in the chat. You can unmute yourself at this point because the presentation is over and just ask if anybody would rather do that rather than typing. So we can take a minute to see if anybody has that. Okay. Oh, and actually, Barb, you mentioned this to me before we opened up, and I thought it was very interesting. It is not a bird that comes to your feeder, so it's not really part of what you're talking about, but you have nesting barred owls
Yes.
at your house.
So if anybody's on our Facebook page, and if not, I recommend going on our Facebook pages. I have a pair of barred owls that have been nesting at my house since 2019. And we have a camera inside the box and then one outside. And so I pull video footage and post it on our Facebook pages. So on Monday, she laid her third egg. This is the first time she's ever laid three. She typically lays 1 to 2 eggs. So this is a big year for her. So yeah, we're excited about that. And then when it comes down, when they hatch and everything, we do a naming contest and everything. So yeah, you can follow Olivia, Owlivia is her name, and he is Owly. But we post videos and have fun with that. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's
follow
great.
along either our Lexington Park or La Plata page.
Okay.
If you
And
want to try searching for it, though, you should be able to find it by Wild Birds Unlimited, Lexington Park, or La Plata. So you
okay.
should find it searching for those two. But
All right. Well, I think that might be everything. Barb, thank you so much. It is always a great pleasure. And I will see everybody next time for the hummingbirds.